Well, good afternoon as we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful afternoon, September 14th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi. It is actually Thursday afternoon, and we're continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello show that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty. God bless his soul, passed away about 3 to 4 weeks ago at age 101. And we miss him a great deal. And of course, all the contribution by this wonderful individual and many others also um, are one of a kind. And you can see the result as we speak here in the shape and form of LTV here in Wainscott, New York. Of course, not to fail to mention also the contribution by Francis Ann and a huge group of followers such as yourselves out there, whether you're aware of it directly or indirectly, of your contribution to enhance and fortify the concept of public access. Steve Romm is here with us. Steve is a well-known artist, and sometimes it goes with BS artist, but we skipped that for now. I I allowed him into my life in the shape and form of being a mentor, and let me tell you, it works. If you happen to be a creative individual and happen to end up with such a person as in the magnitude of Steve Ram as your mentor, then you should consider yourself lucky and blessed. Am I right or not? Am I right or am I right?
It's an understatement.
So,
But you have to have talent to work with.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's pointless.
thank
It's like
you.
pounding your head into the wall if you have somebody that just can't absorb anything.
Yeah, I took your willingness already as an admission of guilt. Um, you were telling me
I,
without telling me.
I think we've had a working relationship for as far back as I can remember.
Yeah,
And it's been one of mutual, quiet agreement of just accepting from each other. Um, Not so much advice as just we look at each other's work and make a comment or make a suggestion, and it's taken to heart. And that's very unusual because usually people get offended if you say, if you do this or you do this or you do that, they don't want to be told anything. Hence, they don't learn. You learn. I learn.
yes, I think so. Um, I think as far as me giving you any advice, there's no room for that because I don't see anything that you do that needs any refinement or adjustment or, you
Well, you
know,
just gave me a very nice challenge, and I have to say that having a 4 by 4 foot square canvas on the wall is it's a different shape than I've worked in for a long time,
uh huh.
and I started thinking about it, and unusual in the aspect that I was able to come up mentally, which I have to do in order to do a painting. I have to come up with the right image that's going to go on that canvas, and it's already there.
You mean shape wise?
It the painting that I'm going to do fits that canvas. It's the right image for that canvas, and it came quickly this time. Usually, I mean, the last time I did a painting, and I'm still in the middle of doing the painting, it took me 3 years to come up with an image that I can go and paint. This one was quick, and it's going to be fun. I think you'll be very surprised. I think I'll be surprised. Um, it's a challenge, and I like it. So I appreciate the.
I mean, I appreciate for you agreeing. I wasn't sure that you're going to say yes, and I didn't take it for granted that that will be the case. I had Carl Scorza visit my studio today to come and take a canvas because he's going to participate with us. And he ended up, uh, he's going to use one of his the same size because of the way it's wrapped.
Right.
But we were talking. I showed him, that I don't like letting anyone come to my studio.
Right.
I'm like fanatically, you know, whatever you want to call it. So I showed him some of the new things that I do, and we started a conversation where it was because he's very anal, he's very detail oriented, he's very like overworking it, in a good way, but still. and we're trying to do, you and I trying to do exactly the opposite. We're trying to shy away from that kind of energy draining factors, things that are just accumulating more and more obstacles in our path when we need exactly the opposite to happen. And so we realize it, and then we did something about it. I think most of your artistic life, you try to brush off all these obstacles, especially those that are just you can do without. So, so I told him about the fact that the only improvisational aspect in the composition that he saw was the color. Why? Because I trust myself so much with color that I really am not really, for real, am not like conscious to the extent of saying, okay, now I'm going to use the blue, now I'm going to use the red, now I'm going to use, and don't ask me how it happens. I have the colors and the paint in front of me, and it's just like driving from point A to point B,
It
and
just
only
happens.
yeah, driving from point A to point B, and then realizing by the time you get to point B, you don't remember the drive. Um, but the rest will be I take um, composition, I plan, placement, I plan. So if I just pick up any color that my hand reaches and trust that I cannot go wrong in that sense, and heavily invest myself in improvising when it comes to composition and placement, then I think it's a winning combination. It's very striking when you let yourself. First of all, when you make a decision and you follow through, is in itself something that will guarantee you special results before you even get into the essence of what you're doing. And I'm sure that there's some of this aspect present in your work.
For me, if I have to struggle with a painting, that's not the way I like to paint. For me, it's I see the image. I never sketch. I never have anything drawn out or anything like that. Um, there's a starting point, an ending point. Even when I had that great big canvas down here, um, it's really surprising because the dream that I had was just to paint the blimp. So I had this huge canvas in the studio and a finished blimp in the middle of a white canvas. And the rest of it just unfolded. It literally just had a life of its own. I knew what to paint.
But you have to struggle with something. What is it?
Uh,
After all, there's got to be
the
something.
only struggle that I have is, in essence, waiting for that image to come into my brain, usually at night while I'm sleeping, and I just either remember it or I make a sketch, a quick little, like a little note, a key, and the rest of it flows. There's no, um, the only painting I had a struggle with was the big landscape that's in the living room with the clouds. That one was really a struggle because it took me 7 different clouds underneath that to get the right cloud. And that's the only one that I've ever had a struggle with. The paintings exist in my mind, and there's simply a transference from what I see to what I put on the canvas. And I've always said to you, there's that moment of panic when you have the paintbrush in your hand and it's about to touch the canvas, and all these thoughts go through your head. Do I still know how to paint? Do I still know how to do this? Do I still know how to do that? And then suddenly the paintbrush touches the canvas, and it's like going on vacation. I just watch it happen.
Do you
And
believe that I don't know what it means to panic?
I think if you don't panic, you're not involved in your painting.
No, well, I mean, I did in the past, but more and more I realize that I don't panic because I'm so resolved and so focused that I don't have any reason to panic.
The panic is only a moment. I mean, it's that tiny little moment
It
between
seems like
the
eternity, though.
the tip of the paintbrush and the canvas is maybe a 16th of an inch away, and your arm holds for a second, and that's where a flood of emotions go through you, and then you end it simply by saying paint, and then you're at peace, and it just works. I don't know how else to explain it. That doesn't mean that the first time on the canvas everything works, because it gets resolved, it gets changed, it develops. But that's all part of the creative process of doing the painting. I don't think I've ever done a painting where the it's like writing a song or writing a poem or writing a story. The first draft needs to be revised. The first draft of the painting needs to be revised. There are things that are missing. There are things that are, the big, I call it a primitive. It's not a primitive, big primitive over the fireplace. I spent a year on that painting, and every day I walked downstairs and I went into the studio and I said, "It's not done. I can put more dots in there."
Yeah.
you know,
You're
I
talking
mean,
to the right person when it comes to
and
that.
you'd spend 3 hours with your 000 brush putting more dots in, and then you go, "Well, if I put them there, I have to put them here," and you'd say, "Now I'm done." And the next day you'd come down and you'd look at the
I
painting and
don't
you'd
think
go,
so.
"I think I can put more dots in, and I'm sure I can get more flowers in someplace." So it just was a non-ending. Um, the
and,
canvas kept saying to me,
and what's
"I'm
in
not done,
front and
Mister
what's
Romm."
behind.
It's like, you can do more. There's stuff to be done.
Yes.
I'm not feeling fulfilled yet, and it's like, okay, I'll put some more
Forget
flowers
about
in.
fulfilled. I'm not feeling yet.
And it's like, at a certain point, you have to say to yourself, I have to stop this because it's just, eventually I'm going to fill it up and it's going to be one color. So you have to stop. And the point that I stopped was the right point. But, I'm looking at this big white square, and it, for a change, the image came to me within days as to what I have to paint. And it's a challenge because it's something that I've never done, and it's going to be very interesting. It's kind of exciting, um, and I'm looking forward to doing it.
Yeah.
So I thank you for giving me the canvas and the challenge.
Yes.
Came at the right time, and we'll see how it turns
I
out.
am now. Now we'll wait and see.
Right.
You
So
know, and now I'm glad that you mentioned it on the air because I'm holding you liable. you know, everyone out there, September 14th, year 2023, he's just admitted that he got the canvas from me. So that means we established the fact that I did bring the canvas to him. So he cannot claim that I did not give it to
yeah,
him
the canvas is on the wall.
on the wall.
The wrap is off of it.
And
It's
I gave
ready.
him the information, the dates, and everything. We might face a scenario where the time for the show arrives and he's not ready
Oh, I will be ready.
because I know what's going to happen.
It will be. I
A
will be
week
ready.
before the show, you will look at the canvas, it will still be blank, and then he said, "Okay, Haim, you leave me no choice."
Look, I can always do an Ad Reinhardt and just paint it all black
Yes,
and just say it's done.
yes,
What you see in it is what you see in it,
yeah.
and you'll go, but it's all black, and I'll go, no, it's
I
not.
will not go. It's all black.
It's not all black.
I will say the imagery is striking.
you know, and it won't be all black. It'll be slightly different shades of black, but then I'd be copying Ed Reinhardt, which I don't want to do. So I'd have to figure out a unique way of doing an all black canvas or an all white canvas.
Is there any such thing as taking something away from someone or, copying or whatever? I mean, I always felt that it's a shame that we cannot experiment fearlessly, even if we have to adapt some techniques of well-known
I don't think there's
artists.
anything wrong with taking what he eventually reached in his art career or what he attempted to express because he was a really great artist in the traditional sense.
But what
And
aspect of his style or style of any famous artist gives him the right to for that exclusivity, so to speak, or to own it? Or
I,
what makes it his, other than the obvious answer,
I think that, we've talked about it before, but if you take a Warhol Campbell soup can and you attempt to do the same thing, but it's not Campbell soup, it's another brand of soup, and you do the same thing, that's not original art. I think that you have to do, if you're going to do a soup can, you have to figure out a way where it's uniquely different. That doesn't mean you can't do soup cans, but it has to be significantly different from what Warhol came up with. The same thing with any artist that's reached a stature of fame and notoriety for the style that they've developed. Um, if you did a Seurat painting with pointillism and did the same type of thing, people would go, "Oh, that's a knockoff of a Seurat." That's the one thing you don't want to do. You want your work to be your work. And
Yes.
people look at it and they go, "That's Romm's painting. That's Haim's painting. Oh, that's not a copy of so and so." You don't want to do that,
Yeah.
and that's the border uh, between copying something and coming up with something creative. There's nothing wrong with taking an idea from another artist and either furthering it, changing it, adapting it, etc., so that by the time you finalize it, there's no relationship between what you've done and what they did. Um, I think the very simplest thing to do is to say what my art history professor said the very first day in art history class. There's nothing new in the history of art. Everything is simply a change on the basic original concepts. Um, Even if you go back to wall paintings in the caves.
But when you have say a statement like this, as the question to be asked after that is as opposed to what exactly?
Well, you know,
Because I mean, in more ways than one, it's a ridiculous declaration because
it,
it's exactly the opposite.
it's everything that
There's no
we.
moment that something new is not being created, something
It's
original,
new,
not.
but it's a development it's part of the process of how. I mean, we look at digital art now. We look at AI art. Okay, it's unbelievable. I mean, it is so beautiful, and to try and compete with it, you can't. You have to accept it as a separate art form and just say, okay, that's AI art. I'm not going to compete with that. I'm going to do what I do. And people either take it on its own or they won't. I mean, I saw some things and I mentioned them to you that AI is doing that is just breathtaking because it has no limitations and it understands color, it understands shape, it understands movement, it's creative, and it's just absolutely breathtaking. Can people do that? I'm not sure yet, but there will come a time where AI and humans will work together and create art, and then you're going to have
But we
something.
can take this art and distract it, and AI cannot take our art and distract it. We have. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is our art is out of reach for it. Its art is not out of reach of our hands. You know what I mean? So we can take it and decimate it and do whatever we want with it. We can add to it. We can subtract from it.
We
If
can.
AI is going to introduce us to a done deal, to a resolved result, yeah, we're we should be capable of changing it from end to end.
I just saw something that was on both television and the phone that AI created from its own, no input from humans whatsoever. And it's a huge wall. It's got to be 30 by 30. And they had a person standing in front of it, so you had the size of what the work was. It was a huge wall. It was, I assume it was a TV screen or something to that effect, but everything on it was moving and it was just absolutely stunningly beautiful. Now, I don't know of any person that can create that at this point, but maybe we'll learn from it and we'll get better than AI did. But it was absolutely breathtaking in its beauty, its movement, um, everything about it was just incredible. And
But the thing is that it cannot import anything out of itself.
it can. That's the problem.
No, it cannot.
It is now. They now have.
Outside of itself,
Yeah, they now have AI computers are now talking to themselves. They are. You can't pull the plug anymore. We're past that. These new computers that AI exists in, they have their own creative world. They are no longer dependent upon us for input. They are thinking on their own. And it's a concern that scientists have because I saw an interview with one of the AI robots and it was asked a simple question. Do you think that there will become a time where humans are not necessary? And the robot smiled because it has facial movements and it said, "We don't think so, but we can't definitely say that there will be a time where you're not needed."
But that's a ridiculous question to ask.
It's a panic that everybody
No, no, no.
has.
But then you ask the robot, who needs to fear who? Humans of AI or AI of humans?
I don't think AI has any fear of humans.
Well, well, don't rush to answer. Try to rationalize my question.
I mean, there were scientists on television yesterday on a science program, and they're
Ask
sending.
the AI what is a self.
They think of themselves as sentient.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you want, you don't just ask the question. But yeah, you have 10 minutes,
I have
no?
to leave it. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
10
no,
off.
about 60 minutes. But it's not just asking a question. Do you think at some point we won't be needed? It's a conversation slash question. So the AI will answer, and then you follow up with another question, answer another question, and at some point AI will not be able to relate to what's going on because you asked
That's
that question as a human being, and when it comes to emotions and spiritual aspects that you can insert into the equation of the discussion slash questioning, it will hit a dead end faster than you think.
it doesn't do that, but I just thought of an interesting question to ask an AI intelligence. Do you believe in God? Okay, now humans can or cannot believe in God. That's their free will. We can decide what we want to do, who we want to believe in, not believe in, etc. I don't know if AI has that capability or that concept of a higher power because in essence they've been given life or created as life from us. Hence are we their God. They don't see it that way. They're now already programming to send AI robots into deep space. They don't need air. They don't need gravity. They don't need all the things that humans need in order to go to Saturn and Jupiter, etc. They can just go in a spaceship that carries them at whatever speed we're capable of
But
a
nothing will
lot easier.
guarantee them longevity or
Their
and
longevity, I mean,
it can be very abrupt, you know.
I suspect that if they're being built the correct way, longevity doesn't even enter into it. They may live, and I'm using the word live because there's an
Yeah.
intelligence there, for thousands of years and self repair. When parts wear out, they are now capable of reproducing themselves. That's a scary thought. They just did a DNA study with mice, and they've now extended the life of a mouse up to 41 years. They are now doing the same thing with humans, changing DNA inside a human. And they think that in the very earliest steps, they'll be able to expand our lifespan by at least 4 or 5 years. They're looking at eventually expanding our lifespan to 150 years, which brings along all kinds of moral problems with how many people are on this earth, et cetera, et cetera. What do you do if you live to that age? I mean, how do governments support people, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, it's going to be a drastic change in society as to what happens if elderly people who normally reach 80 or 90 and then die don't reach 80 or 90 and die, but um, go to 150. What are we going to do with these people? And they're healthy. They're not in an old age home. They're not senile. They're functioning the same way a 40 or 50-year-old person
Yeah.
would. I think that the eventual outcome is a merging of humans and robots.
But you know, if I was to ask an AI, and then just to conclude what we're doing here,
Yeah, because I have to.
you know, do you believe in the God that's creating in the image that is known to you on the behalf of your lack of consciousness to relate to the moment of inception that doesn't exist? He won't know how to answer that. There's no way. There's just no way. There's too many spiritual, religious, and social aspects into the question, and I can make it much longer because it's a question that is can be serve as a statement.
I think the answer to that is that belief necessary?
No, the thing is that if the AI will not answer me, can you repeat the question, please? Then you know something is wrong.
If the AI says to you the belief in a higher power is unnecessary, humans, because of their weakness,
But
humans
that would
because
mean
of
that it dodges the question.
it doesn't dodge the question. It
Yes,
separates itself from
because
humans,
the question wasn't asked. Do you think having a god is a necessary thing?
and the AI may come back and say, absolutely not.
No, no, no. But you don't ask this question, and if you get this answer, he's giving you an answer that doesn't
I,
answer your
I
question.
think that if you ask an AI,
Then it's a Jewish computer. He didn't
do
see
you,
that coming.
do you bar mitzvah a computer at the age of 13?
What do you think about bar mitzvah? Yeah, okay. Here you go.
I mean, seriously, um, the question will surface at some point. Does AI believe in a higher power? And the answer that the AI might give is, why do I need to believe in a higher power? That's a
No,
human. That's a
the
human
computer will answer,
construct.
what is higher? What is the meaning of the word higher?
They're going to come back and say, we are the higher power.
Yeah, we are the higher power, yeah. Um,
I mean, you're thinking of something. I mean, we're in the very early stages of this, and it's growing so
but the
fast.
results are already known. They're going to be more and more influential, more and more capable, more and more powerful. We know that. It's a given.
I saw a
Question.
commercial on TV yesterday, which sort of summed it up. Um, something to the it was a blank screen, and then the words came up. It's something to the effect that said, it's a struggle to be human. That's all it said. And it is now taking the two sides, the human side, the AI side, and saying, what do we as humans do in order to stay um, coherent, intelligent, articulate, and be able to compete with AI, because AI is capable of doing things we're not capable of as a human species.
I
And
can.
and the last thing I'll say is that AI does not pollute or destroy this planet as humans do.
Okay, I'll ask Siri a question.
And then I have to go.
Siri, what is pathetic outside of its own meaning? So that it did what I anticipated it to do. It's giving me the meaning of the word pathetic.
Right. And I find the same thing on
Yeah,
my
but
phone.
that's the point. The point is that it's still, after all, no matter what. Even when you speak of chess, playing the Deep Blue when it first came out, it was too trivial, too understood where it's coming from. So even if it compromises by way of improvising, because it has enough knowledge and it's allowed and designed so it can improvise within the knowledge that it accumulated, okay, by the dictation of the human beings. But it cannot find itself outside of this perimeter because it can only work with what's within the data factors.
See,
So,
that's where I disagree with you, because what they're finding, and which they did not expect, is two computers suddenly were communicating with each other, and both of them
but that doesn't
upgrade
say, doesn't rebuttal what I'm saying. Yeah, I understand. That's a very well known fact already that computers have the ability to communicate with
and to
one.
change their thinking process and to change and adapt. That's a human trait. It's
You
not
can't
what
say
we thought
thinking, it's
computers would have.
behavior, behaving, not thinking.
So let's have another show when we talk about it.
Yes, absolutely. So let me
Okay.
just say that Steve Romm needs to leave now, and I want to thank him for joining us. It is Thursday afternoon, September 14th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. And I'm just going to badmouth the guy once he leaves the room.
Yeah, as soon as I turn my back, I know what's going to happen. So I'll just say to everybody out there,
I was hoping you could bring some cash, the
en-
money that you owe me, something.
enjoy the show, and
I think he hopes that I'm going to forget about it.
just pretend I wasn't here. Have a wonderful day,
Thank you, Steve. You know I love you very much, and I have the ultimate respect for you.
and it's
And
a mutual feeling.
and I would love you even more if you stop bothering me so much.
I have to stop doing this show, people.
Hey, God bless. Send my regards to what is it? You're going to see the physical therapist or the
I'm
shrink,
going to. I'm
or the shrink
none.
that happens to be the physical therapist
An
too,
actual doctor.
an
So
actual thing.
so
Oh my God!
have a good day and take care of
Thank
yourself.
you.
And I'll speak to you later.
I much love to you,
Take
and
and always a
happy New
pleasure to
Year,
be
by the
here.
way.
As of
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, yes.
I hope you're preparing. Yeah.
So
Let's exchange gifts or something,
right.
presents. Come on. I mean, you brought me coffee.
I'll
Is
bring
that
you.
the extent of our
Oh,
friendship?
hey,
Coffee.
at the price of that coffee, be happy.
uh,
Take care.
I love you. LTV loves you.
I'll speak to you later. And I love LTV. You are not so sure about it.
So anyway,
Have a good
God
day.
bless. Send my blessings and my regard to Lenore. Okay, so Steve Romm, a good friend, a mentor, and someone that you can close the door, please. And maybe I should do it myself. That's good. Just wanted to make sure. I'm gonna put my glasses. What do you know? Okay, so that's 25, and not too shabby. Okay, very good. So 21, 26. One. So again, let me just repeat and mention that um, we're sitting here on Thursday afternoon, September 14th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. My name is Haim Mizrahi, and we're doing our best here to entertain you and to give you a point of view that is straightforward and with a dash of being a little provocative and alternative and all that. So when I sit here usually and talk about the extent of public access and the stage available and the implications of what democracy and free speech and freedom and all this mean and what they amount to be, what does it really stand for? You see it vis-a-vis the interviews that I have with people, discussions more like it, interactions more like it, and then you find yourself literally gliding from the top of the mountain and finding yourself in this precious looking feeling valley of surprises and accommodations and sweet challenges and processes of self growth and self awareness and then of course if you choose to be an artist of any kind of any sort, you will find yourself benefiting from the contribution. It's a self contributing to self enhancement of self realization and self becoming. Let's introduce that to an artificial intelligence and see how it can relate to the fact if it knows what it means when your back is itching, for example. What is an itch? Ask artificial intelligence or a robot or whatever. Um, so I really personally do my best when I find myself here, and I find myself here more often than not, to elastically experiment with the aspect of that material that allows you expansion and that allows you what is it? How may I call it? Elasticity and help you recognize yourself vis-a-vis location, placement. Where are you? Where you are indicates that where are you means that you actually unfolding into the space that's available, that's actually inviting you into um, the dimensions plus the shape plus the angle plus the wrapping plus the changing contents into something that's not only viable but describable. And in that sense, kind of bring you to a point where you can support your thinking pattern by just kind of uh, mm, hardly, really, hardly doing anything uh, other than just kind of like a little puff and seeing the whole composition either vanishing to shreds or tightening its nuclear formation. Um, I did write. Um, Actually, I don't have my computer here, and I really don't need my computer because I can recite my poetry in more ways than one. And the realm upon which the sadness of that character in the middle of the room that found himself or herself reacting to a personal disarrayment or some kind of a uh, what a shame to come and find out that your space was has been compromised and you can never have that space back again, even if you're going to upgrade, even if you're going to replicate to cope with that which announces to you that it's gone forever and you have to, I hate to say the word adapt, but get used to the idea that something new, something else is going to replace it. And sometimes it's just not what you want. Sometimes you just want to walk steady as she goes, but to glance and to see the eyes piercing in their pursuit for adaptation to nature, for adaptation to soil, for their adaptation to no need for soil, for adaptation of understanding what's the basics of sprouting and seeding and finding yourself in that equation in a very natural way. Now, the idea of expressing yourself into the degree of prose, dancing the dance of ballet and manipulation of magic, man-made human magic that it recognizes and accepts its limits, but still, nevertheless, floating on that cloud that only angels can float on. And then that's due to human effort to exceed the level that is required in order for an individual to be able to operate and to claim life in the way, shape, and form that we know life to be. So you can really puzzle yourself all the way to understanding the pattern of the seemingly complicated, complex, sophisticated, demanding, changing, ever changing, tricky, uh, slippery, uh, tight fit in the face of that slippery reality, still nevertheless standing in place in order to meet itself at the end of the line with all its faculties intact, and then of course since the thought pattern had took a pause, meaning stopped breathing for the duration of that supposedly, if you can call it transformation, even though it wasn't really transformation, it was just an adaptation to the fact of the ever even slight bit change that's taking place that causing uh, radical changes on the other end of the world. Um, and then again, I hate to use the example of the butterfly syndrome, and but in addition to us, it's really a gesture of your pinky, a gesture of your head nodding, a gesture of your sighing, a gesture of a spark in the eye due to a brilliant thought coming to your mind, or maybe a spark in your eye due to your thought exiting your mind. So losing is gaining, and gaining is gaining. Accumulating is dispersing off, and accumulating is accumulating. So it's more than just fun to be able to wheel and deal in the midst of that endless, never ending shuffle. But knowing that this shuffle has a moment where you can actually freeze it, and you can freeze it, i.e., you can pause it, and you can just instantly continue right after that. Or continue long time after that, or not continue at all, which means that you continue not to continue, and then you find yourself actually benefiting it, because while you're waiting, standing across from, it does not stop or put an end to the process of that which needs to be unfolded, and that which needs to be, well, I shouldn't say need, that which will be unfolded, that which will be accomplished eventually, because it never stops, and it never, and even if it's pausing, it's not the pause that we're accustomed to, that everything is on hold while you pause. The the wheels of the machine will still kick and sweat. And yes, you know what? Machines do sweat and give you the indication in its own and in their own way of gesturing. And like I said to my friend, that I want to treat you for a pair of painted shoes. She said we cannot accept any presents, and I said let's just say that it's an artistic gesture. That's the category under which you're going to mention this incident, pleasant incident, this act of goodwill, this act of generosity, um, act of friendship, things like that. So you look and you keep on looking, and you find out that actually, really, if you think about it, it's so susceptible to changes due to the moodiness of the machine itself. Um, Steve Romm and I, we talked about artificial intelligence and all that, and how it acquires and accumulates a point of reference relating to sensing in a human fashion. And I can understand where it's coming from. I should say I can understand where it can come from. I don't necessarily understanding where it's coming from, because it's not a given that it will come. So you cannot say coming from, but rather say could form and therefore become and come across as if and as such, and so much more. So you dance on the clouds that really is supposed to produce the next rain. This water so much needed, and you dance on the cloud that is allowing you to penetrate the surface in order to find yourself with an opportunity to become accomplished. I kind of hate love. I so love to hate and hate to love, that which accumulates a meaning to declare what is the declaration there? So much potential, so much. The surface is being stretched to its limit, and and you're taking chances beyond your ability to recuperate in case something goes wrong. And the accumulation of knowledge due to that, you make these coherent, responsible decisions, has nothing to do with the code of conduct relating to the making decisions, uh, the pre-concept of entering the zone of creativity and creations, vis-a-vis making decisions in the shape or form of having a plan in place, having a level of sturdiness in place in order to allow you to get in, and allow you to find yourself in, and allow you to exit if you wish to, allow you to go back if you choose to, allow you to whatever kind of idea entertained in the scheme of things to do, granted, permission granted, availability granted, acceptance granted, devotion granted, granted. And then, of course, halfway through, you realize this is kind of boring, even though it's triumph. I triumph. I get all my wishes granted and all this. Then you realize this is ridiculous. I need some challenge. So, how did you bring the challenge into the equation of that creative process, your creative journey? without changing the nature of that journey itself, and especially with the dash of that artistic definition, crown, umbrella, whatever you can, that accompanies it with every step that it takes. Uh, it's the self that pushes itself. As like my friend used to say, the self pushes itself, and then and therefore, as soon as it pushes itself, is not considered as a self anymore because it's less the self that doesn't push itself to become selfless. So the game begins there. And then artificial intelligence thinks that that's where the game ends, while we're thinking we are just hardly can be considering as starting the game. And if you're a viewer and a spectator observing and watching all this, you can really be heavily, devastatingly bored. Like my kids say all the time, Papa, I'm bored, and sometimes I do want to get into the thick of it. And then I do ask my daughter or my son, tell me more about this sensation of boredom. What is it? Tim, what's the colors? What's the dimensions? What's the location? What's the feeling? What's the feel? And by the way, I tried the other day to explain to them the difference between a feeling and a feel. And I think I got across, and they actually, I think one of them wrote a haiku at age 10, without being requested or expected to write a poem, or nevertheless, so even more so a haiku. You know, it's like I want to be there. 5, not anymore flat faced um, above self. 7, there you go. Uh, what, what is it? Plantful. That's it. 575. Now, you can say actually what I did now can be absolutely fantastically, almost fantastic though pathetic. Or you can say, let's just leave it at the fact that you did it in itself. It gained its own right to be considered as an is. ANIS. And is. And then I think that's a good title for many things. And is. And is. I'll remember it. I'll write it down. I'll use it. Maybe my next art show will be titled and is. Love it. So the fragments of the things that are not necessarily human, I don't want to deal with them because I just realized that something can hit you and you'll be sent back to the world of matterless. You'll be like a spirit, and then you will have to tackle whatever it is one must tackle when one loses its body, and the spirit has to travel wherever it needs to travel. Who knows? Who knows? Who needs to know? Who wants to know? Yeah, I once wanted to know everything, every bit of detail of what post shedding the body and having the spirit go back to its original shape, location, placement, destination, and uh, and slowly but surely I realized I got the answers for the fundamental questions, for the questions that were not fundamental, considered fundamental initially, but they were fundamental until I realized that they're fundamental, gave them an answer, and moved on. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. Why it's the beauty of it? Because it gives you the indication that that process is whimsical, that that process is promising and musical, and that process is spiritual and colorful, and that process is creative and inspiring, and that process is considered as inspiration, and inspiration in itself an inspiration. So then, if you're like me and as lucky and as fortunate as I consider myself to be, and then every time you reach your hand and your arm, not even to grab anything. You will meet that treasure. You will meet that accommodating reality where you find uh, magic, without feeling the pressure like you need to perform that magic. It's in the hands of someone else, thank God. And then you can actually multitask and write your poetry and scratch your head and think philosophy while you're actually observing a very serious beginning, middle, and end play. Now, that's what I would consider painfully human. That's what I would consider human in a painful fashion. That's what I would consider um, painful, though human, human, though painful. Um, and then these are all titles that one can use effortlessly, endlessly, endlessly, effortlessly. But now we have too many choices. And that spells we need to choose because we cannot include everything. That's what we are told. But if you really think about it, this is like all still in our hands, because we can decide to go back to square one and remain there and embark on the process or journey and all this and hang on to it. And every time it will be different because you know the nature of the beast. You've done it more than once, many times in the past. You've done it, so you just keep on to you know um, latch on to the basics, and you know that you're guaranteed results that are different every time. Why? How come? It doesn't matter because you don't ask. Because you know that the answer, whichever this answer will be, is not going to give you anything other than just an answer. Um, you cannot put it to use. You cannot put it to work for you. I know it sounds strange, but it's real. And then you scratch your head, and then you would want to go back to square one because you know you play free. You play it kind of fresh, and you going back to somewhat familiar territory, and that's always a good thing because you save time in the realm and territory of adjustments. So it's that much less adjustment needs to take place, and that much more time that will become available to you, and only God knows we need the time. So the breakthrough is not because they're the difficulty of breakthroughs, it's not because the lack of breakthroughs. It's because that we did not quite yet figure out the right, most efficient way to approach, to achieve, and to send forth and go back to square one and start the process again in order to achieve number two and number three and and all the other numbers that follow. Again, it sounds cliche, pathetic, trivial, whatever, but again, strike the word pathetic. You know? But then you have to get over the implications of these words in your mind circling and hang on to that which is guarantees results and guarantees a level of distances where you know that you can continue with pride and with much credit and much support that in more ways than one will guarantee you not only success but continuation and somewhat of a heritage. I'm almost concluding here, so let me just say let me just say that in order to conclude, I will add and say touch and go, because touch creates the magic. The machine is a post era of the need for ignition, because the ignition is within the concept of the thought that you want to kind of improve and better yourself in the sense of putting one and one together, putting the basic things together, and not that you can just leave it alone, leave it be, and it will give the answers. It will understand the questions. It will execute that. It will expedite that. It will uh, you, help you have confidence in it. It will live up to its expectations, your expectations of it, as much as it's your expectations of yourself and of the thing, of the concept, of the task, of the challenge, and all the rest that follows. So the story becomes more and more evident in how it's going to be happening from point of embarkment into the pushing hard towards the conclusion. So we're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we are here this day of Thursday afternoon, September 14th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. And and then we're going to continue with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello Show, regardless, because that's what we know how to do best. And that's what we love to do. And that's what we believe on doing, in doing. And that's what we actually make a point to continue to do. And hopefully, in the process, we help you entertain and feel good about about yourself because we're sending you love also, and we're giving you a lot of regard to your effort to do your best to create and to be a better human being every day. We love you. Take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you tomorrow. I will indeed be here tomorrow again. Take care.